Hey, shout out to my peoples who are at their 9 to 5 job and are doing their thing, getting ahead. Respect to y'all, man. Been doing things for mad years. I have a sister that's been working at the same job at Costco for like, I don't want to say her age, but that's her first job out of high school and she's still there. She's like in her middle ages. She's in her mid 30s, so shout out to you. That's why I got to keep reading. I want to get this book done for y'all. And I know it's going to be some book that maybe people really going to want to read. I don't know. I want to show you guys that I'm working. So, chapter 4. The brigade was halted in the fridge of a grove. The men crouched among the trees and pointed their restless guns out at the fields. They tried to look beyond the smoke. Out of this haze, they could see running men. Some shouted information and gestured as they hurried. The men of the new regiment watched and listened eagerly while their tongues ran on in gossip of the battle. They mouthed rumors that have flown like birds of the unknown. They say Perry has been driven in with big loss. Yes, Carrot went to the hospital. He said he was sick. That smart lieutenant is commanding G Company. The boys say they won't be under Carrot no more if they all have to desert. They less knew he was a Hannes's battery is took. It ain't either. I saw Hannes's battery off on the left not more than 15 minutes ago. Well, the general, he says he going to take the whole command of the 304th when we go into the action. And Daniel says we'll do such fighting as never another regiment done. They say we're catching it over on the left. They say an enemy drive our line into a devil of a swamp and took Hannes's battery. No such thing. Hannes's battery was long here about a minute ago. That young Hasbrook, he makes a good officer. He ain't afraid of nothing. I met one of the 148th Maine boys, and he sees his brigade fit the whole rebel army for 4 hours over on the Turnpike Road and killed about 5,000 of them. He says one more such fight as that and the world be over. Bill wasn't scared either. No, sir, it wasn't that. Bill ain't getting scared easy. He was just mad, that's what he was. When that father trod on his hand, he up and said that he was willing to give his hand to this country. But he'd be dumped if he was going to have every dumb bushwhacker in the country walking around on it. So he went to the hospital regardless of the fight. 3 fingers was crunched. The darn doctor wanted to amputate man of Bill. He raised a hell of a row, I hear. He's a funny feller. The din in front swelled to a tremendous chorus. The youth and his fellows were frozen to silence. They could see a flag that tossed in the smoke angrily. Near it were the blurred and agitated forms of troops. There came a turbulent stream of men across the fields. A battery changing position at a frantic gallop scattered the stragglers right and left. A shout screaming like a storm banshee went over the huddled heads of the reserves. It landed in the grove and explodingly redly flung the brown earth. There was a little shower of pine needles. Bullets began to whistle among the branches and nip at the trees. Twigs and leaves came sailing down. It was as if 1,000 axes, wee and invisible, were being wielded. Many of the men were constantly dodging and dunking their heads. The lieutenant of the youth's company was shot in the hand. He began to swear so wondrously that a nervous laugh went along the regimental line. The officer's profanity sounded conventional. It relieved the tightened senses of the new man. It was as if he had hit the fingers with the tack hammer at home. He held the wounded member carefully away from his side so that the blood would not drip upon his trousers. The captain of the company, tucking his sword under his arm, produced a handkerchief that began to bind it with the lieutenant's wound. As they disputed as to how the binding should be done, the battle flag in the distance jerked about madly. It seemed to be struggling to free itself from an agony. The billowing smoke was filled with horizontal flashes. Men running swiftly emerged from it. They grew in numbers until it was seen that the whole command was fleeing. The flag suddenly sank down as if dying. Its motion, as if it fell, was a gesture of despair. Wild yells came from behind the walls of smoke. A sketch in gray and red dissolved in a mob-like body of men who galloped like wild horses. The veteran regiments on the right and left of the 304th immediately began to jeer. With the passionate song of the bullets and the banshee shrieks of shells were mingled loud catcalls and bits of facetious advice concerning places of safety. But the new regiment was breathless with horror. God, Saunders got crushed, whispered the man at the youth's elbow. They shrank back and crouched as if compelled to await a flood. The youth shot a swift glance along the blue ranks of the regiment. The profiles were motionless, cavern, and afterward he remembered that the colored sergeant was standing with his legs apart, as if he expected to be pushed to the ground. The following throng went whirling around the flank. Here and there were officers carried along on the stream like exasperated chips. They were striking about them with their swords and with their left fists, punching every head they could reach. They cursed like highwaymen. A mounted officer displayed the furious anger of a spoiled child. He raged with his head, his arms, and his legs. Another, the commander of the brigade, was galloping about bawling. His hat was gone, his clothes were awry. He resembled a man who has come from bed to go to a fire. The hoofs of his horse often threatened the heads of the running men, but they scampered with singular fortune. In this rush, they were apparently all deaf and blind. They heeded not the largest and longest of the oaths that were thrown at them from all directions. Frequently over this tumult could be heard the grim jokes of the critical veterans, but the retreating men apparently were not even conscious of the presence of an audience. The battle reflection that shone for an instant in the faces on the mad current made the youth feel that the forceful hands from heaven would not have been able to have held in place if he could have got intelligent control of his legs. There was an appalling imprint upon these faces. The struggle in the smoke had pictured an exaggeration of itself on the bleached cheeks and in the eyes, wild with one desire. The struggle in the smoke had pictured an exaggeration of itself on the bleached cheeks and in the eyes, wild with one desire. The sight of this stampede exerted a flood-like force that seemed able to drag sticks and stones and men from. The sight of this stampede exerted a flood-like force that seemed able to drag sticks and stones and men from the ground. So he's talking about how they were running so fast, they just, they were just going forward. They of the reserves had to hold on. They grew pale and firm and red and quaking. The youth achieved one little thought in the midst of this chaos. The composite monster which had caused the other troops to flee had not then appeared. He resolved to get a view of it, and then he thought he might very likely run better than the best of them. All right, that was the end of chapter 4. I'm gonna just stop real quick and read it again, of course. All right, y'all. Just hope you enjoy these books. I'm sorry, I'm just a faded guy, and my eyes are very low. Consider this like a boxing match. That round was a little filling out, but it wasn't much talk, so you didn't get much of an idea of what they were saying. It's more of like God is seeing it, or it's like how they're explaining the whole scenario. He writes very this person writes very I'm familiar with this speech, with this wording, obviously, because we don't speak like this, you know what I'm saying? So, and this author writes very vividly and very detailedly and very thoughtfully and very intelligently, actually, and encouraging, and so I think that that chapter was okay. It's not like the movies, like the movies, you just see it, you see the images, but it's okay. I was enjoying my day and getting another book done, then you guys know that I'm worthy of these supports and these donations on my Cash App. Anyway, God bless.